Welcome to the WTR Healthcare Happenings podcast. I'm your host, Tim Gerdeman, Vice Chair and Co-founder and Chief Marketing Officer of Water Tower Research. In today's podcast episode, I have the pleasure of being joined by Dr. Eric Poma, CEO of Calidi Therapeutics, NYSE, ticker symbol CLDI. Also joining is my Water Tower Research Equity Research colleague, Robert Sassoon. Calidi Biotherapeutics is a clinical stage biotechnology company that develops genetic medicines and proprietary genetically engineered oncolytic viruses. Its strategy is to develop therapies that shield oncolytic viruses from innate immune defenses, enabling them to deliver genetic payloads into tumors and remodel the tumor microenvironment for lasting anti-tumor immunity. Thanks for joining me today, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks, Tim.
Eric, before I hand it over to Robert, let me start by asking you to tell our listeners about your professional background, as well as providing details on the history of the firm and a 30,000-foot overview of where the company is today, please.
Sure. So I'm a molecular biologist by training. I've been focused on cancer research for 35 years at this point, starting with my doctoral work, really looking at the intersection between viruses and oncology. I did a few detours. I got an MBA. I worked briefly as a biotech analyst on the street, but the majority of my career has been really focused on biotech space, drug development side, particularly around moving novel technologies into the clinic and establishing proof of concept. That kind of history really led me to Calidi. I joined the company last year because, again, I think they have an extraordinarily interesting technology that we're moving into the clinic. This really fits the wheelhouse of what I've done in my career. Calidi was started over a decade ago, really focused on this idea of how do you engineer an oncolytic virus, which again is a virus that is designed to infect and destroy tumor cells, to really how do you engineer an oncolytic virus to fight cancer, particularly one that can be given systemically, and we'll talk about this more. But that's really been the focus of Calidi. Over the 10 years, there was some, blind alleys, there was some false starts, but it's really kind of culminated in the Redtail platform and our lead compound, CLD401, that we look to move into the clinic. We think these are huge breakthroughs. These are potentially huge breakthroughs in oncology. We're really excited to be driving them to the clinic to treat patients that have stopped responding to all available therapies. That's really the focus of the company here.
Great. Thank you for that overview. And with that, Eric, I'll turn it over to Robert to ask a series of questions.
Thanks, Tim, and welcome, Eric. It's great to have you on this podcast. As you mentioned, Calidi's Redtail platform is the centerpiece of your development strategy. Before we dive deeper into that, could you start by explaining why oncolytic viruses have become an established cancer therapy and what advantages they have over chemotherapy?
Yeah, so most people know that cancer fundamentally is a disease of unchecked growth, right? If you don't treat cancer, it'll spread throughout your body. That's what we call metastases. It'll invade tissue and ultimately cause death. So most people understand that part of cancer being unchecked growth. But what makes cancer so difficult to treat is that it is also genetically unstable. That means it's highly prone to mutations. And that means that whatever treatment may initially work, so think about something like chemotherapy, if that initially works, the cancer can then oftentimes mutate and become wholly resistant to the chemotherapy the patient's receiving and oftentimes just all chemotherapy. So the field is always looking for new ways to attack a tumor where the tumor may not yet have resistance mechanisms. Oncolytic viruses represent a brand new way to attack tumor cells in a way that they have not become resistant to. There's other aspects of them in terms of being a portal for genetic medicine as well that's extraordinarily exciting. But this is why the field is so interested to see what happens with oncolytic viruses. They represent a brand new approach to oncology. They may have inherent safety advantages over something like chemotherapy as well, but fundamentally this is about having a whole new tool to go after tumors in patients that have stopped responding to everything else.
Okay, thanks for that. So oncolytic virotherapy has been around for a while. I think the first therapy was actually FDA approved back in 2015. So what are the shortfalls in established oncolytic virotherapy that Calidi is aiming to address with this Redtail platform?
Yeah, so you've seen an interesting dichotomy here. To your point, TVEC was approved in 2015. There's two or three more oncolytic viruses that have shown really excellent activity that we expect to garner approval soon. Again, this goes to the idea that they have a new mechanism of action. They can really benefit patients who have progressed on all other therapies. But the big Achilles heel with oncolytic viruses has been the fact that you cannot deliver them systemically, at least so far. If you try to inject, again, if you have a cancer that's systemic throughout the patient, metastatic, you want to be able to deliver a medicine that is systemic, that can go everywhere, find those tumor cells and destroy them. But the problem with oncolytic viruses has been when you inject them into the bloodstream, a patient's immune system is very, very good at eliminating viruses. The patient's immune system doesn't know that this is a beneficial virus. It just sees it as a virus and it eliminates them. So right now, oncolytic viruses have been restricted to viruses that you can directly inject into a tumor lesion. And that is a minority of cancer patients. A minority of cancer patients have tumors that are directly accessible via injection, non-metastatic. So there's been great proof of concept, but the overwhelming hurdle that we have to get over is, can you engineer viruses that you can give systemically so that they can go everywhere into these deep sites of metastatic disease and eliminate those? That's been the big hurdle that Calidi's really been focused on overcoming.
So to address the gaps that you mentioned in the current technology, could you walk us through the science behind your platform, its capabilities, and importantly, why you're confident it will work? And is there any supporting data for that?
Yeah, so Calidi again has been working on this for over a decade, and again, as with all research, there was some early promise and then some retrenchment and all that. But we've come up with the Redtail platform that we think is wholly unique and really represents a new way of thinking about systemic delivery. In the past, people have thought, well, maybe if you pump in enough virus, you can swamp the immune system and some of that virus will get to the tumor, and that'll be an approach for systemic. And that has a host of challenges and problems with it. Calidi's view here was, what if we engineer a virus that essentially is cloaked or is invisible to the immune system? What if we create a virus that when you inject it into the bloodstream, the immune system just doesn't notice it? So that was really the game plan for Calidi. Redtail's emerged over the last year and a half, where what we've been able to do here is take a strain of virus that we've engineered and that we've selected for, where as it's being manufactured, and again, these viruses are manufactured in human cells, this strain takes on the human cell membrane. And so it's kind of cloaked in a human cell membrane, and it makes it very difficult for the immune system to recognize it because the immune system is interacting with the human cell membrane that's cloaked around the virus. So that's part A, and that makes it really difficult for the immune system to recognize the virus and eliminate it. Then we've gone a step further here where we have the virus express a human protein called CD55, and there's huge amounts of data around CD55, but CD55 essentially also shields the virus from the immune system. CD55 is a protein that inhibits complement. So you now have this kind of belt and suspenders where the virus is encapsulated in a human membrane that makes the virus look like a human cell to the immune system. We've gone this step further to have CD55 expression on that membrane, which again dampens any immune response to the virus. And what we've been seeing in all of our animal models is that this provides an excellent amount of protection, that you can give the virus systemically and have excellent results in an animal model where there's metastatic disease. We think this is the most sophisticated approach to kind of viral cloaking or immune evasion really ever developed. And so we're very, very excited about moving that to the clinic. So that's the core here, is that we've developed a platform that allows for systemic delivery. Once you have that systemic delivery, you can now get the virus to go to these metastatic sites, lyse the tumor in a brand new mechanism where the tumor is probably not resistant to. And we've gone even one step forward because viruses are a great way of delivering genetic medicine. And here with our lead compound, it's cloaked from the immune system. It gets to these metastatic sites. It destroys tumor cells. And then we have this last step where it expresses this protein called IL-15 superagonist that drives a specific anti-tumor immune response. And so everything we've been seeing in our animal models is that this is a huge step forward, a big 1-2 punch against tumor cells, and we're extraordinarily excited to be moving this into the clinic.
That's interesting. Now, the Red Tail platform, as you've just gone through us with us, emphasizes systemic delivery. Now, typically, systemic approaches raise concerns about toxicity and unintended effects on healthy cells. So, why did you choose this route over local delivery?
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. If you think about a treatment like chemotherapy, chemotherapy is great at destroying rapidly growing cells. So your tumor cells are rapidly growing, but because it's systemic, you lose your hair follicles, you lose cells in your gut, causing nausea and vomiting. You get kidney damage, you get liver damage, right? So there's always issues with systemic delivery. But again, when you have metastatic disease, you have to have systemic delivery to get to all the sites of the tumor. I said that Calidi's been working on this problem for 10 years. One of the things Calidi hit upon very early is that you can engineer the virus and make changes so that it only replicates in tumor cells. So there's features around tumor cells that can help drive viral replication. So you can alter your virus so that it only replicates inside cancer cells. Here, because we've been able to do that, we believe that even though you give the virus systemically and it will go everywhere, it's only going to replicate in tumor cells. And we think that this will really limit the potential for any unintended effects on healthy cells. Again, if you think about a treatment like chemo, very different. Chemo just alters DNA or denatures protein in any rapidly growing cell. So very hard to get rid of side effects. But here we've engineered a virus that only replicates in tumor cells. Again, 10 years of work kind of coming to fruition.
Thanks for that explanation. So, I think people will be interested to know, and you mentioned that you're targeting metastatic cancers. But what type of cancer is the Red Tail platform specifically targeting? And are there any opportunities for this therapeutic to target other indications such as autoimmune diseases?
Yeah, so the first compound coming out of the Red Tail platform is our lead CLD-401. This has been, again, engineered and designed to really focus on patients with solid tumor metastatic disease that have progressed on all available therapies, and in particular in diseases like lung cancer, which is the most common form of cancer, triple negative breast cancer, melanoma. These are diseases where we think the virus's ability to evade immunity, get to these metastatic sites, lyse the viral cell, lyse the tumor cells through replication will be really helpful. But also these are tumor types that are particularly amenable to the kind of immune targeting that IL-15 superagonist expression will do. So again, this is that kind of 1-2 punch where you're getting to these metastatic sites, you're lysing the tumor, and at the same time, you're inducing this really strong anti-tumor immune response. Lung cancer, triple negative breast, melanoma, these have all been shown to be really susceptible to that kind of immune response.
Great.
We are working on another set of compounds, though, coming out of Red Tail that will focus on things like autoimmune and other diseases as well. Those, stay tuned. You'll see those data kind of coming out later this year.
Definitely want to watch that space.
Yeah.
So, as we started the new year, can you walk us through the key anticipated milestones for 2026?
Yeah, so we're going to be working very diligently and hard here on the preclinical and manufacturing studies required for us to open an IND with the FDA, so an investigational new drug application with the FDA to start clinical studies with our lead compound, CLD-401. That's the major focus. We expect to have that submission done by end of year and very quickly start treating patients thereafter. So that's kind of head down, working on getting the IND open and approved and starting to treat patients. That being said, as we just talked about, we'll be putting out a lot of data at medical conferences throughout the year, some of it on the lead compound and additional data that we're seeing with the lead compound, but also some exciting new applications that we're seeing, both continued inside oncology, where we've been working on expressing BiTEs at the tumor site with a T-cell activating payload, as well as outside of oncology around areas like autoimmune. So expect to see a lot of data coming from the company pretty metronomically throughout the year.
Okay. So, given your strategic priority on Redtail, what's the current status of your other more advanced programs? You have Neuronova for glioblastoma, that's in a phase one, and Supernova targeting solid tumors. And I understand these programs utilize a stem cell approach.
Yeah, so these are kind of legacy programs that the company got. The said company's been around for over 10 years. One of the initial insights at Calidi in an attempt to get systemic delivery was to try and put virus inside stem cells and then systemically inject the stem cells and hope that they would go to the tumor. It was an interesting idea. It ended up not really working. Those stem cells are gigantic and they were getting hung up in vasculature in the lung. So it didn't work as a systemic approach. They were shielded from immunity, though. They just couldn't get to the tumor. And that led to this insight about, well, what if you just encapsulate the virus in a human cell membrane to kind of shield it from immunity? So there was some real insights that resulted in Redtail, but those programs were then repurposed as, again, directly injecting into tumor because there's some advantages of having them stem cell encapsulated. Right now, those programs are being investigated through academic collaborations or through grants, and again, in an intratumoral injection space. They're legacy products. Again, a lot of the work led us to understand Redtail, but right now, those are legacy products that don't really require company spend, and we'll just see how the data evolve. It's a different paradigm, though, than what we're doing with Redtail and systemic delivery.
Got it. So finally, for me, can you speak about your financial strategy with respect to advancing, particularly Redtail, and to get to where you want to be?
Yeah, so again, I think that the important thing here is that the company's been around for a while. Company went public in 2023, but Redtail's a brand new story here. We just started putting data out last year on Redtail. We've been talking to investors, talking to analysts, talking to bankers, and there's a lot of excitement around the technology, particularly with this idea that we can prove it out clinically in the next kind of 12 to 18 months, right? If you dose a patient and you see systemic delivery and activity, it doesn't mean that the drug will get approved on in phase one, but it means that you've shown that we've overcome this inhibition of systemic delivery. So there's a huge amount of excitement that in a very near term, the company can prove out this technology. That's a very unique opportunity in biotech where the technology is largely underappreciated, unknown, but where we're very, relatively close to generating clinical POC here. So as we've been having those discussions with investors, we're seeing them start to take notice, and we think that there's a very nice path forward here to financing the company so that we can get through these endpoints.
Well, thank you, Eric, for letting us into the world of Calidi Biotherapeutics and giving us a sense of what is potentially an exciting modality for treating difficult cancers. So back to you, Tim.
Thanks, Robert, and thanks for joining us today, Robert. Eric, I appreciate your time. Very interesting story, and best wishes for 2026.
Yeah, thank you both, Tim and Robert, and yeah, happy 2026.
Thank you for listening, and don't forget to subscribe, as well as visiting www.watertowerresearch.com to stay up to speed on the company's small cap written research reports, podcasts, fireside chats, industry-specific symposiums, and conference schedules. We will see you next time for another edition of the WTR Healthcare Happenings podcast. Finally, a special thanks to the producer and editor of the podcast, Krista Fitzpatrick.